I never imagined I would find myself here, telling this story. If someone had asked me a year ago, I would have laughed at the absurdity of it all. My life was perfect. At least, that's what I told myself every morning when I woke up next to David, my husband. We had been married for almost 10 years, and on the outside, we seemed like the perfect couple. Successful, happy, living in a beautiful home. But behind those closed doors, I was lost. I didn't realize how much until I met him. It was an ordinary afternoon when I decided to visit the art gallery. David was busy as usual. Another case, another night, where I would eat dinner alone. I had become accustomed to it, though the loneliness had settled into me like an unwanted house guest. As I wandered through the exhibition, admiring the paintings, my eyes landed on a particular piece. It was vibrant, full of color, and something about it pulled me in. That's when I noticed him. A young man, standing a few feet away, his dark hair slightly tousled, and a confident yet curious smile on his face. He was watching me, and I could feel his gaze like a touch. For reasons I still can't fully explain, I didn't look away. When he approached me, his voice was casual, playful. Beautiful, isn't it? The painting, I mean. I smiled, more out of politeness than anything. But when our eyes met again, something shifted. There was an unspoken understanding, a spark that felt dangerous, yet thrilling. His name was Ethan. He was younger than me, 10 years younger to be exact. But at that moment, it didn't matter. I felt alive in a way I hadn't in years. I didn't intend for it to happen. At first, it was just harmless conversation, coffee dates, and a few texts here and there. But with each meeting, the space between us grew smaller and the tension thicker. I had never been unfaithful before, not even in thought. But Ethan, he was different. He made me feel seen. He made me feel wanted. One evening, we met for dinner. It was a quiet, intimate place, and the candlelight cast shadows on his face, making him even more irresistible. After dinner, we walked along the river, and the air felt heavy with anticipation. I knew something was going to happen. I could feel it in my bones. We stopped under a tree, away from the crowd, and he took my hand. I should have pulled away. I should have reminded myself that I was married, that this was wrong. But when I looked into his eyes, all reason disappeared. He leaned in and kissed me, softly at first, as if testing my reaction. But when I kissed him back, it was like opening a floodgate. I had never felt anything so intense, so desperate. From that moment on, there was no going back. Our meetings became more frequent, our kisses more urgent. He made me feel things I hadn't felt in years, and I was addicted. We found hidden places to be together. Quiet corners, hotel rooms, anywhere we could be alone. With Ethan, I discovered a part of myself I had buried long ago. His touch was electric. His lips a fire that consumed me every time we were together. He would whisper my name like it was a prayer, and I would lose myself in him, in the way he made me feel alive. As the months passed, I knew what I was doing was wrong, but I couldn't stop. Ethan made me forget everything. My responsibilities, my marriage, my life with David. Every moment with him was a whirlwind of passion, and I was swept up in it. I started lying to David, telling him I was meeting friends or attending work events. The guilt gnawed at me, but I kept telling myself that I deserved this. I deserved to feel wanted, to feel desired. But something changed. At first, it was subtle. Ethan would cancel plans, say he was busy. The texts that once came frequently became sparse, and when we did meet, There was a distance in his eyes that hadn't been there before. I tried to ignore it, but the feeling of unease grew stronger with every passing day. It was a Tuesday afternoon when I decided to surprise him. I hadn't heard from him in days, and the silence was unbearable. I told myself I was overreacting, that maybe he was just busy. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. I showed up at his apartment unannounced, my heart pounding in my chest. I knocked, and when he opened the door, I felt the ground shift beneath me. He wasn't alone. Standing beside him was a woman, young, beautiful, the kind of beauty that comes effortlessly with youth. My heart shattered in that instant. All the lies, all the passion, all the stolen moments, they meant nothing. He had played me, just like I had feared he might. Anna, he started, but I didn't let him finish. I couldn't. The betrayal was too much. I turned and walked away, my vision blurred by tears. In the days that followed, I felt hollow. The pain of his betrayal was unlike anything I had ever experienced. I had risked everything for him, and he had tossed me aside like I meant nothing. David noticed the change in me. He asked if something was wrong, but I couldn't tell him the truth. I couldn't bear to admit that I had betrayed him, that I had fallen for someone who never truly cared for me. Slowly, I began to pick up the pieces of my life. It wasn't easy. The guilt and shame weighed on me, but I knew I had to move on. What I had with Ethan wasn't real love. It was a fantasy, an escape from the reality I hadn't wanted to face. David and I weren't perfect, but we had built a life together. We had weathered storms before, and though this one was different, I knew I had to at least try to repair the damage I had caused. Looking back, I realize now that what I had with Ethan was never meant to last. It was a fleeting moment of passion, a dangerous affair that burned too brightly and too quickly. But in its ashes, I found something important. Myself. I don't know if I will ever forgive myself for what I did, but I have learned that real love, the kind that lasts, is built on trust and commitment. It's not always exciting or passionate, but it's real. And that's worth more than any fleeting romance. Ethan may have betrayed me, but in the end, I found my way back to the person I needed to be. And for that, I am grateful.